Hey, good morning. Patricia Murphy here. It's Saturday. This is Seattle Now. Today we're bringing you the best from newsrooms across Washington. First, rising diesel prices are squeezing the Pacific Northwest fishing industry. They're cutting into profits and adding new uncertainty to an already challenging business. Rachel Miller-Howard reports.
Gulls circle over the port in Garibaldi, Oregon, as Jesse Kuhn offloads his catch.
And what kind is it?
It's a Chinook salmon.
He's a fourth-generation fisherman, born and raised in Tillamook County.
I guess it's in the blood now.
But early in the season, the numbers aren't adding up. Since the war in Iran began in late February, fuel costs have surged, cutting thousands of dollars from Kuhn's already thin margins.
It really makes it feel like you're just gambling.
Salmon fishing is fuel-intensive, involving long offshore runs to find the fish.
We've probably made a few $1,000s is all after the fuel costs. I could do that working at Home Depot or McDonald's or something.
He considered tying the boat up and waiting for the season to kick into higher gear, but decided to keep fishing. Chris Anderson is a fisheries economist at the University of Washington. He says many might be less willing to fish during transition seasons due to high costs.
And that's going to impact their revenue overall. And of course, it's going to impact whether or not that fish is available for us in the market to eat.
Anderson says when fishermen tie up their boats, it cuts off supply and strains long-standing international buyers like Japan and China. It creates long-term problems at home, too.
The processor also isn't able to provide work for their crews. The shippers who trade it, the retailers don't have that product to sell. We kind of lose the economic multiplier of the post-harvest fishing sector locally.
Anderson says trawl vessels, boats that drag nets for harvesting shrimp and groundfish, have the highest fuel burden because they need bigger engines. In Brookings, on the southern Oregon coast, Brad Pettinger runs a trawl operation with two 80-foot boats, each with 10,000-gallon fuel tanks. He pays his crew a percentage of the catch value. He says he typically covers the fuel costs, roughly 10% of his revenue. This year, it's different.
I may have a discussion with my crew about how we're going to do this. The increase will probably take it off the top, I'm guessing.
More money for fuel, less for the crew. In Ilwaco, Washington, the impact is already reaching some customers. At Shake and Bake Sport Fishing, Captain Mike Colbuck is passing fuel costs on to clients who book trips.
This year, we have a $300 a day surcharge to make up for some of it. And if it keeps going up, I guess we could have a bigger surcharge.
Colbuck blames high fuel prices on the Trump administration. He says most other fishermen don't share his politics, but he thinks the war is starting to sway minds.
Now all of a sudden, they're like, hey, wait a minute, nothing got cheaper, everything got more expensive.
Pettinger sees it differently. He supports the administration and says fishermen have seen its benefits. This April, the administration announced a new Office of Seafood under the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It's aimed at expanding access to loans, grants, and markets for fishermen.
It's going to get better. It's going to get better for fishermen across this country.
In Garibaldi, Captain Hank Slavens is unloading after a 3-day salmon trip.
$1,500 worth of fuel on this trip. And we found probably $7,000 worth of fish.
Fuel alone ate up roughly 20% of the trip's value. Slavens worries about his bottom line.
Hopefully Trump's doing something for us that we don't realize at the moment, That's what I'm thinking.
For now, he's just going to keep on fishing.
We're just going to do it until we're broke.
In Garibaldi, I'm Rachel Miller-Howard.
Rachel Miller-Howard is a freelance reporter for the Northwest News Network, a partnership of public radio stations in the Pacific Northwest. From fossil fuel to fossils, for around 15 years, people have slowly dug up mammoth bones near the Tri-Cities. Along the way, people have made a lot of other discoveries. Northwest Public Broadcasting senior correspondent Courtney Flatt went out to the dig site.
Wind whips through wheat fields in Coyote Canyon on the outskirts of Kennewick. But this spot is home to more than just crops. It's also the site of a glacially paced mammoth dig. Every year, people can tour the site, or volunteer to help dig.
Which is way cooler than just seeing a skeleton behind glass at a museum.
That's Neil Mara, a research assistant with the site. Today, a gaggle of third graders from Pioneer Elementary School in Sunnyside tour the site. This is where bones of a Columbian mammoth were found in the late 90s.
Whoa!
That mammoth died 17,500 years ago. It was likely swept here by massive Ice Age floods. Gary Kleinknecht is the site's education director. He says this mammoth is different from what the kids are probably picturing. Kleinknecht shows them a painting of a mammoth.
What's missing?
The fur.
The fur, yes, the long hair.
Also, this Columbian mammoth is way bigger than its woolly cousin. A cardboard cutout of its left hind leg is at least 10 feet tall. Just imagine the tusks.
One of those tusks weighed 200 pounds.
200 pounds?
Big tooth.
That impressed 9-year-old Cormac Newhouse.
Mammoths, some of them were bigger than elephants, and like they're taller than my dad.
When they're not giving tours, volunteers catalog all sorts of tiny things buried around the Coyote Canyon mammoth. Lizards and beetles and rodents. Bax Barton is the site's research director. He says mammoth bones are everywhere. Around 50 have been found in Benton County alone. But this site is helping look at the bigger scientific picture, instead of what often happens to mammoth bones.
Oh, look at the trophy that sits on the mantelpiece or on the professor's office desk and never gets studied. But it's a great paperweight,
He says most scientists don't have the time to look further. At lots of dig sites, landowners want the bones out of the ground as quickly as possible. That way they can keep right on doing whatever it was that led them to discover the mammoth bones. That's not the case here. The landowner has given them all the time they need.
We're beginning to slow down and take a look at the bigger picture for these animals.
Like learning more about the climate and how that changed over time. Other scientists can reach out to study what's been cataloged and preserved. At the dig site, the kids look for tiny bones. But these come from owl pellets, not anything important to the site.
Here we go.
Mara dumps a bucket of dirt onto a super fine mesh screen.
Okay, listen up. We're going to spray water on this dirt and we're going to turn it into mud. And then we're going to reach into the mud with our hands. We're going to stir it all up.
The kids squish the mud through the mesh. What's left are bugs, rocks, and tiny bones.
I found a bone!
That excitement is catching. Mara says every day at the site is an act of discovery.
Boy, doing the digging, it's such a cool thing. It's like opening a Christmas present. You never know what's underneath that next shovel full of dirt.
And there is still a lot more shovels full of dirt to go. Barton says this dig could keep going for another 5 or 10 years. I'm Courtney Flatt in Kennewick.
Wait, there's five. I found a bone. I found an actual bone.
And finally, since December, renters in 6 apartment complexes in Tacoma have voted to form unions. They want to bargain with property owners for better leases, and organizers say the movement is growing. KNKX Murrow News fellow Nate Sanford has more.
Show you around at the back here, show you our rickety old stairs.
Isaac Galvin lives in the Marguerite Apartments in Tacoma. The 10-unit complex has a basement with washing and drying machines, but Galvin doesn't like to use it. He says he goes to a friend's house to do laundry because he's still scarred from a flea problem last summer.
It was pretty scary. I would come down here and I'm like 2 steps in, I've got fleas up to my knees.
The management company at the time sent someone to spray for the fleas, but Galvin says it didn't fix the problem, and he and a neighbor had to take care of it themselves. He thinks the issue is emblematic of a broader sense of apathy from ownership.
They only view us as a source of income, as a money pit. And we're people. We live here. We work.
The landlords live in California, and the building has been through 3 different management companies in less than a year. Narrows Property Management, which took over in March, said in a statement that they respond to maintenance requests in a timely and attentive manner and operate in accordance with state and city law. In April, Galvin and his neighbors voted to organize themselves into a tenant union with 2 other buildings in Tacoma's North Slope neighborhood. They celebrated with a rally.
Step up to the plate! Come negotiate!
According to Zillow, the average rent in Tacoma has increased by about 70% over the past decade. Of the 6 Tacoma apartment complexes that have voted to unionize this year, 5 are owned by the same couple in California. They didn't respond to a request for comment sent through the management company. The tenant unions have demanded that the landlords meet with them and negotiate better leases that address their concerns with maintenance, what they consider excessive fees, and other issues such as posting notices with private information on renters' doors. The landlords haven't agreed to meet yet, and there's no rule that says they have to. Traditional labor unions are overseen by a federal agency and have rules around bargaining and arbitration. But with tenant unions, it's still the Wild West. Tara Ruggivier is the director of the Tenant Union Federation, a coalition of tenant unions across the country.
We don't have any real rules. We have no real processes. So we're making stuff up. And I think that invites a level of deep strategy and creativity.
Ruggivier says tenant unions are still pretty rare, but the movement is growing. In 2022, the San Francisco City Council passed a law that requires landlords to meet with tenant unions and confer in good faith. In Tacoma, organizers are gathering signatures for a ballot initiative that would create a similar requirement. But even if the initiative doesn't pass, the tenant organizers say they have another tool: a rent strike.
The money we pay them is our biggest amount of power.
Ben Everett is a resident of New York Apartments in Tacoma, another unionized building. He says organized tenants now account for about $50,000 in monthly rent for the landlords.
And so, although we don't want to rent strike, we will if they won't continue to meet us at the bargaining table.
Sean Flynn is the president of the Rental Housing Association of Washington, a large landlord lobby. He doesn't think unions make sense for the rental market.
Unions make sense in a situation where you have a single employer, for example, like the school district, right? So all the teachers have to work for the school district. So the school district, right, that would make sense. But in housing, there's a myriad of different choices in housing. If you don't like your housing options, people move.
Flynn thinks landlords won't want to invest in rental property in Tacoma if they know they'll have to deal with tenant unions.
People don't provide housing, as a charity, right?
Come down the scary back staircase. Go
Maggie
ahead.
Knott lives in the Newcastle Apartments in Tacoma, which also recently voted to unionize. She has a sign on her door that says Union Occupied. So does her next-door neighbor, Kenny Loth.
We pretty much never spoke before.
I think I talk to your girlfriend more commonly than I talk to you.
They're from different generations, but they've grown close since getting organized.
I mean, we're different humans that come from different perspectives, but are really aligned on this, and it's a beautiful thing.
The unions all have regular formal meetings where they talk strategy, but there's also a lot of informal note sharing that happens between neighbors now. Things like transparency about how much everyone is paying for rent.
I know a lot of Northwest folks can be pretty antisocial, but I promise you it's not that scary. Your neighbors are going through the same stuff as you.
Loth and Knott's advice for other renters? Walk down the hall and introduce yourself to your neighbors. I'm Nate Sanford, reporting.
Appreciate you listening to Seattle Now, and thank you to our generous financial donors for your support. It's the weekend. Relax. Take a moment. Rate, review the show. Share it with a friend. You've got plenty of time. Our production team includes Caroline Chamberlain-Gomez, Vaughn Jones, Andy Hurst, Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you soon.